Okay, good morning and welcome to the Datamax Technology Tailgate 2017. We've got a full agenda this morning. We have three presentations this morning focused on security, and these are presentations that are geared for a business audience. We're not going to go into a lot of buzzwords or technical geek speak. We're going to stay focused on issues of business and items that business executives could take action on. So getting started, I'm going to talk about going on offense, being proactive. Primarily, my presentation is going to deal with socially engineered attacks. So as far as cybercrime goes, most businesses, most IT departments, they are going to want to throw technology and money at the problem. And that could be everything from firewalls, content filters, virtual private networks, a host of technical items to deal with the problem. But one area that remains wide open for most businesses is the area of employee education. So, ask yourself, sitting in the audience, what is your company doing to educate their employees about being safe, using technology in a safe way? For most people, the answer is, gee, I hadn't considered that. The problem with that approach is that socially engineered attacks are a huge problem. All right, so before we go on, let's talk about a definition of terms. So phishing, simple phishing. Everybody knows about that. You bait a hook, you put a bobber on your line, you throw it out in the water, it floats, you wait for something to bite. Whatever bites, you reel it in and away you go. Closely related to that is phishing, spelled with a PH. It's largely the same as traditional phishing, except in this case, the people who are going PH phishing take emails. The email is the bait. They send out a large volume of emails, hoping that someone will click on the information inside the email, and when they click on that, that's when actions are taken. That's when the nefarious activities begin. Another term is spear phishing. In the traditional sense, when I think of spear phishing, I think of someone scuba diving with a dart gun, or maybe someone in a canoe with a spear, and I'm throwing a spear to fish. And in that case, I'm selectively targeting the fish that I want to have as my prey. Well, there's another closely related term also known as spear phishing, and it is the same kind of approach targeted to technology, targeted to specific individuals inside of an organization. So, let's start with phishing. This is a snapshot of a portion of my email. I have a spam filtering solution, and I have it set up so that known email that are identified as known spam are sent to a specific folder, and I'm sure that most of you have something like this as well. In the time period from November 1st to current, you can see that I have received 11 emails from someone purporting to be Amazon.com. Now, as we're going to see when we dig into these are not really from Amazon.com. This is somebody phishing, using Amazon.com, using Amazon branding in the email to try to get me to do something. All right, so before we start to take that email apart, we're going to spend a few minutes talking about the anatomy of an email address. When you're setting up email addresses in your, let's just say Outlook, for example, Microsoft Outlook, you're going to have a display name and you're going to have an email address, okay? So on the previous slide where you saw all those Amazon emails listed, those were emails that were coming in with a display name of Amazon or Amazon Rewards or Amazon Gifts, whatever they were. Now, as we dig in a little deeper into the anatomy of an email address, you're going to see this is my username This is before the @ sign. After the @ sign is the domain name. Okay? So, if you have a company named ABC Merchandise, your website might be abcmerchandise.com. In my case, our company is Datamax. We're the Texas location, datamaxtexas.com. All right. So using that information, let's take a look at this email. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on it. And you can see that the display name is Amazon Product Highlight. But when I start to assess the email address, you're going to see that it's from amazon.product.highlight@gravbrotfamilydental.com. So this is a fake email based on my analysis just of the email address. I haven't clicked anything. I haven't done anything dangerous. I opened the email, and this is just me investigating. All right? And it's trying to trick me into clicking on a link for a USB camera. Digging in a little deeper, these emails have links in them, and the sender wants you to click on the link. Well, a function of Windows and a function of Apple products is that if you take your cursor and you hover over the link, it will expose to you where that link is going. So I can see based on this information, I in fact am not going to be going to Amazon.com if I click on this link. It's going to be going to a place similar to this gravbrotfamilydental.com. I can see that that's repeated down here. So I pretty much have confirmation that this email has who knows what purpose, nefarious. Maybe it's just an ad. Maybe it's something where if I go to that website, I'm going to be infected with some kind of virus. I don't know. But common sense, based on this analysis, tells me I shouldn't be clicking on this. All right. This is a legitimate email from Amazon. So let's take a moment and review what makes this a legitimate email. And if I'm going to zoom in again, I can see that it says Amazon.com, no reply at Amazon.com. And if I hover over any of the links, I can also see that those go to Amazon.com. So something that you want to avoid doing when you're testing these things out, you don't want to, you might say, well, I'll just, instead of clicking on the link, I'll just take this and I'll drop it in my browser and I'll go wherever my browser takes me. That's just as bad as clicking on the link. One of the things that was suggested in a previous webinar is that you take information like this, throw it in a Bing search window or throw it in a Google search window and Google that address and see what comes up. If it comes up as Amazon, then you know it's legitimate. If it comes up as something else, then it's a problem. Okay? And that's using the search, which won't take you to that site. Okay, so using what we've learned, let's take a look at this email. This is a test. We've got an email that's come in. It is promising me, it's thanking me for participating. I didn't even know I was participating, but hey, it's good to know. Take the time now to unlock your preloaded Amazon card. Expires today at midnight. Continue to unlock your card. This is coming from a display name of Amazon Card Service. So Lisa, using what we learned previously, looking at this, the actual email address over here, do you think that that is a legitimate? No, it's not. This says that it's coming from amazon.card.service@elwoodranch.com. So I know with a pretty high degree of certainty that that is not legitimate. That's not Amazon. Okay. Continuing with our analysis of email addresses a little bit further. Someone tell me, what is the difference between those two email addresses right there? Anybody?
Spelled Texas.
Excuse me?
It's not how you spell Texas.
No. Instead of an A, this is a legitimate email address. This one has an O. Okay, now this is blown up for you. Can you tell the difference over here in something a little bit smaller that may be typical of what you get in your email? Okay? All right, what about these 3 email addresses? What's the difference between those 3 email addresses? Excuse me?
One has ones instead of owls.
Okay, very good. This one has the lowercase l. This one is using capital I, and this one is using the number 1. So in this font, and I'm assuming that everybody knows what a font is, but in this font, it's easy to tell the difference, or somewhat easy, between that one and these 2. But look, these 2 look absolutely identical. Further, if you look over here in a normal text presentation, can you tell the difference? Is it easy to tell the difference? If you weren't looking for this, would it immediately jump out at you as something that was noteworthy? No. All right, last example. These 2 addresses down here, is there any difference between those addresses down below? Lisa, I'll call on you again. What's the difference between those addresses right there?
First one's lowercase lowercase o's, and the other one's zeros.
Excellent. So this one uses lowercase o's, as Lisa said, and this one uses zeros. All right, now looking over here in a different font, a little bit smaller, can you easily tell the difference? Okay. In this case, because of the slashes through the zeros, you can. But depending on the font may not present slashes through the zeros. It's going to be small. It's going to be hard to see. All right, so this information is necessary as we prepare to analyze the next version of threats, and these are known as spear phishing. All right, this is an actual email that I have received, and I've received many similar to this. This email purports to come from Lockheed Martin, okay? And it says, "Dear Sir, Ma'am, we are seeking suppliers of Western Digital 1 terabyte black hard drives and Western Digital 1 terabyte Elements portable external hard drives. This one is quantity 450, this one is quantity 550. If I move down a little bit, I will see that it comes from a gentleman purporting to be Trey Andrews from Lockheed Martin Corp. With a phone number. All right? So I'm going to go back. Oh, you can see it. All right, so here's the email address. Here's a phone number. I can guarantee you that if you were to email that email address, you would receive a response. And the response you would receive would come from Trey Andrews. If you picked up the phone and called that number and wanted information about this, clarifying, hey, I'm going to respond to your bid, I need some information, a guy purporting to be Trey Andrews would answer the phone. Keep in mind here, this is with normal firewalls, this is with all the security that IT departments normally have. This is a normal email coming through. We let normal emails through our technology all the time. This is where end user education is critical. All right, the issue is here, the issue at play is that this domain name right here is not the legitimate domain name for Lockheed Martin. It looks similar. If you didn't check it, you'd never know the difference. So you have to pull up another browser, whether it's Bing, Google, or something else, and you have to browse Lockheed Martin and look to see what the URL is that is returned to you. And then you compare it with this to find out if it's legitimate. The deal is, these are criminals. They're trying to con you. anytime you participate in one of these things, whatever you ship is going to go to a self-storage facility with a locking door. UPS is just going to drop the order. It's going to go in the storage. Less than 12 hours later, somebody's going to come pick that up and ship it to another location, and they're gone. And they're not going to pay for the stuff that you sent. All right. This issue right here. All right, a little bit of background. Everything I'm showing you right now are cons or scams that were successfully executed. So in this case, with these two different companies that we know of, the names have been changed for this presentation, but within the context of the organization that was being stalked and conned, Richard Jones was the president of that company. Howard was the CEO of the company. In this case, Jennifer was the head of human resources. So, what does the email say? In the top one it says, "Hi, I want you to send me the list of W-2 copy of employees' wages and tax statement for 2016. I need them in PDF file type. Kindly prepare the lists and email them to me ASAP. Regards, Richard Jones." This one, "Jennifer, I would like you to send me the list of W-2s copies for all employees for 2016. You can send it as an attachment using PDF. Kindly prepare the lists and email them to me ASAP for a quick review." All right, remember I said these were successfully executed. So what that means is that these emails were received by people who had the W-2 information. The W-2 information was sent out. What do people do with it? They file phony tax returns. Those tax returns have a return coming from the federal government. Those checks are shipped to a phony address, and then the unsuspecting employees only become suspicious when they haven't received their returns, they haven't received their money back from the government, or other clues start to pop up that something is amiss with the tax filing. The only way to address this threat and the previous threat is through employee education and making sure that you have the right processes in place to deal with this. So in the case of these companies, they implemented a 2-step confirmation process. Doesn't matter if the president asked for this in email. The response to someone receiving this in email is to pick up the phone, dial the internal company extension, talk to the president, CEO, and say, "Hey, I'm just confirming that you requested all this information." That takes you out of the phony response loop. In the case of the previous purchasing scam, same kind of process. You've got to do some due diligence, but you've got to make sure that you have a solid process in place for extending credit terms to the people who want to do business with you on a PO basis. You can't look at it and say, "Hey, it's Lockheed Martin. They're good for this. Let's give them terms." You have to verify bank references, trade references. You have to confirm the URL. You have to do some due diligence. Once you confirm the actual Lockheed Martin, you need to call the actual Lockheed Martin purchasing department and find out, is this legitimate? People are aware this is going on, so that kind of confirmation does not come across odd to companies that are involved in this. All right, so as executives in our companies, if we're not doing anything about employee education, these are the kinds of emails that are coming in every single day. Name brand, Fortune 500 companies are corresponding with our employees every day. Sometimes it's legitimate, sometimes it's not. What are we doing as executives to make sure that our employees are prepared to handle a phony Wells Fargo email as opposed to a legitimate one? Okay, the way that we do that is by being proactive. We're going to get in front of this. Instead of sending out an email once a month or once a quarter or bringing it up in an all-employee meeting one time and considering that good, Having been a part of these things, I mean, you guys, everybody knows Charlie Brown. Have you seen the Charlie Brown comic? You know, when Charlie Brown is talking to his teacher, to his parents, what he hears in return is wah, 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 right? Okay, when I am standing in front of a group of employees and I'm telling them, here are examples of people trying to take advantage of you, you need to watch out, chances are that 50% of them are hearing what Charlie Brown hears. The other 50%, or 25% are checking their phone, and the other 25% retain it for about 3 hours and then it's gone. So we have to be a little more deliberate. How do we do that? Let's say we started initiating phony emails like this. We're doing this, the good guys. We are sending this out. And let's say that after we've had this training with our employees, that if somebody clicks on one of these emails that we are sending out, the employee gets something like this. Oops, you clicked on a phishing email. So the first time they do that, I might walk over to their cube and say, hey, I got you, didn't I? I saw what you did. Now remember that training? The chances are much more likely that they're going to remember this when they had their hand in the cookie jar than me just standing up in front of a group and saying, hey, remember, this stuff's out there, be careful. And I can do this on any kind of schedule that I want. So the kind of results that we can expect from this, we can get management reports. We can find out who our repeat offenders are. Who are the people that are continuing to click on the free pizza offers? Who are the people who are continuing to click on the coupon, download $25 off coupon website? And I can take that kind of action. Over time, if I implement a program like this, I can expect to see a decline in my risk as a business to people falling prey to this kind of an attack, the phishing and the spear phishing. All right, so security is kind of funny. IT folks pay attention to it all the time. Business executives pay attention to it part of the time. And usually it's when they're getting an update from the IT group. But every now and then, consumers and the American audience in general pay attention to security. And usually it's when there's an enormous security breach. So the most recent one that became very newsworthy was the Equifax data breach. That Equifax data breach has affected nearly half of America. So half the people sitting in this room today, your most personal financial information is gone. It's on the internet. Potentially, it's being sold by criminals to other criminals who are going to use that information. And it's not just financial information that people are stealing. They're stealing medical records. They're stealing other personal data that makes it easy for them to commit identity theft and take advantage of your track record, your history. So, what are the steps that you need to do to protect yourself as consumers, as individuals? The first thing you've got to do is you've got to find out if you're affected. The next thing you've got to do is sign up for credit monitoring. Consider freezing your credit. Something that you may or may not do. You ought to enable credit card notifications on your smartphone and implement difficult passwords and track them using a password database. And we're going to go through that. All right, so step one, are you affected? So this news came out. I had recently refinanced my house, something that's very common. You may do the very same thing. You may apply for a credit card. I didn't ask to have my data sitting on Equifax's servers or TransUnion's or Experian's, but it's out there. So this email says, based on the information provided, we believe that your personal information may have been impacted by this incident. So I'm part of the 50%. All right, this is what it looks like when you go on Equifax's website and sign up for their identity protection. Problem is, they're only going to give you 1 year of identity protection. What are you going to do after that year? Because that data stays out on the web forever, for all we know. Okay. Something that is relatively simple to implement, and I cannot recommend this more. You may or may not be able to tell by this screenshot, but I have an iPhone. So I'm going to be describing this from the iPhone perspective, but the same kind of capabilities are available to Android users, non-iPhone products. Apple has Apple Pay. With Apple Pay, I have linked my American Express card to Apple Pay. Every single time that I do a credit card transaction, almost instantaneously, sometimes it surprises me how quickly it happens, my phone lights up with a notice that I have a credit card transaction. And I'll zoom in on this so you can see. You know, that was to Heart 8 Barbecue just the other day, $26. Confirmation to me of a transaction, it's legitimate, I don't have to do anything. Another credit card I have from U.S. Bank is not participating in Apple Pay, but almost all these companies will allow you to set up text notifications of transactions or email notification of transactions. So I have this set up so that every time there's a transaction on this credit card, I get a text message. Now, this paid off almost immediately. I was surprised how quickly this paid off. I turned on my Apple Pay for my American Express. I'm laying in bed in the middle of the night, less than a week after I'd done this. I'm getting ready to watch some Netflix. I'm the kind of guy who uses my phone as my alarm clock, so I've got it next to me on the bed. It's 11:30 or midnight, and all of a sudden my phone lights up. And I'm thinking, somebody's texting me in the middle of the night? What's the deal? I look, and it's notifying me of a credit card transaction from Best Buy for $1,200. You better believe I was on the phone, calling American Express, telling them that that is a fraudulent charge. It's not for me. They confirmed the transaction. They were able to stop it, and I was able to get it off my credit immediately, and they were working with Best Buy to try and catch it in real time. Okay, password management. I guarantee you that when I say password management, there are some people in the audience that are looking to yawn right now, because I can't think of a more boring topic than passwords. People hate, in your own company, if your IT department is asking you to change your passwords every 3 months or 6 months or whatever the rotation scheme is, I guarantee you there are people who are complaining about having to change their password. Guarantee it. Maybe you're one of them. I know I complain sometimes. One step that you need to take immediately is use complex passwords. These are not complex passwords. These are common passwords. These are passwords that people use because they don't like to mess with passwords. And these are passwords that criminals routinely use to try and break into somebody's account. So if you're using these words, password as a password, or ASDF JKL that's the home position for your keys on a keyboard. This means keys on a keyboard. Or this, you're setting yourself up for a problem. Another issue with passwords, you have to eliminate password duplication. So in Dallas, Texas, I'm a Cowboys fan. 1996 was the last of their glory years. I like to use the password Cowboys 1996. So it fits this category. It's not a basic password. The problem I have is I'm using that password for all of my logins. So let's use Equifax as an example. They cracked into Equifax. They stole my personal data. You don't think that they now know that I have all this? If they have my password, they can go from one site to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and easily gain access to this. So the key here is you've got to implement difficult passwords. Okay, it can be quite simple. In my case, I'm using a product called MSecure. There are many of them out there. I'll zoom in a little bit. It goes right on my iPhone. I also have it on my iPad, and I have it on my desktop computer. when I store every password in that password database, and it's encrypted using an extremely high index of security. So, the caution there is make sure you remember the password to get into this password database, because if you ever lose that, you're hurting. But your passwords inside of the password database are secure. All right, so another feature that's great about this is that it allows me to easily implement complex passwords. You think somebody's going to be able to guess that password right there? No. You think somebody's going to be able to remember that password, including me? No. But this application makes it easy for me to copy that password out, drop it into whatever website I'm trying to do business with, and now I'm in. This little die right here allows me, when I click on that, it automatically generates a complex password for me. Great tool. I highly recommend it. All right, so in closing, I've got some useful links for you. Links for the Equifax website, so you can check and see if you were affected. I've got the link for the company that they're using for their ID protection. I've also got some links for people who are impacted by the breach. Here's an example. This is from the Federal Trade Commission. It's an entire page on what to do if you were impacted by the breach. So if you'd like those links, I can provide them to you. That's all I have for the seminar. Are there any questions for me? All right, very good. Thank you for attending. I appreciate it.